All right, so let's talk about buying your first rental property in 2025. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. I don't even know where to start, right? Maybe you're wondering if you need a ton of cash, if your credit's good enough, or if you're even ready for something like this. And look, I get it. It can feel overwhelming, especially with so much advice out there that either overcomplicates the process or just skips steps altogether. So what I want to do in this video is walk you through the real process, like a step-by-step guide to help you go from I have no clue what I'm doing to I just closed on my first rental and it actually cash flows. This isn't theory. I'm going to break down what it really takes to buy your first rental, even if you're starting from zero. No fluff, no fake guru stuff, just a real roadmap that works in 2025. So let's get into it. Hi, I'm Justin Brown, real estate investor, mortgage pro, and I've been doing this a really long time. So here's exactly what you need to know. First things first, we've got to talk about why real estate is still, in my opinion, one of the best ways to build long-term wealth. Like, yeah, stocks are cool, crypto's cool, but real estate gives you something different. It gives you control. You're building equity, you're creating monthly cash flow, and you're using leverage, meaning you're using the bank's money to build your own wealth. And the kicker, you get tax benefits that literally no other investment gives you. I'm talking about depreciation, write-offs, cost segregation, all that. But we'll save that tax stuff for another video. Right now, we're focused on step one, getting you your first property. So here's where it starts. Step one is prepping your down payment. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They think they need like $100,000 just sitting in the bank, and that's not true. There are actually two main ways you could go here. One is the traditional route, which is if you're buying a straight up investment property, you're not living in it, you're just renting it out. Most lenders are going to want you to put 15 to 20% down. So if the property costs $250,000, you're looking at $40,000 to $50,000 out of pocket just for the down payment. And yeah, that's a decent chunk of change. If you've got that, amazing. But if you don't, there is another way. And this is also how I bought my first property. This is what I recommend to a lot of people starting out, and that's the FHA house hacking strategy. With an FHA loan, you could buy a property with just 3.5% down. That's a massive difference. And if you're an eligible veteran, you could use a VA loan to do this with 0 down. The only catch is you have to live in the property for at least 1 year. So what some people do, and this is smart, is they buy a duplex or a triplex. They live in one unit and then they rent out the other ones. My first property was a fourplex. I lived in the main unit and let the rents from the other 3 units cover my mortgage payment. So by doing this, your tenants are helping you pay the mortgage. You're building equity and you're getting a little taste of what it's like to be a landlord, all while living there, potentially mortgage or rent free. And after a year, you could move out, rent your unit, and boom, you've got a full rental property. And the beauty is you could then go buy your next property, which could be another multi-unit with low down payment. So yeah, there are ways to get in without needing 50 grand saved up. You just need to play it smart. Now let's talk about your credit, because this one's big. You don't need perfect credit to buy a rental, but the better your credit score, the better your loan terms. And the better your loan terms means lower monthly payments, which means more cash flow in your pocket. Ideally, you want your score to be above 700 to 730 or higher if you can. But if you're in the 600s, don't freak out. You may just need a little time to work on things before applying. But if you are doing a house hack and using FHA, you only need a 580 credit score to do this. One thing I always tell people is start improving your credit before you're ready to start shopping for properties if you can. That means paying your cards down, making sure your payments are on time, and checking your credit reports for any errors. These are simple fixes that can make a big difference. And trust me, having better credit doesn't just help you get approved, it helps you qualify for better rates and better deals, which means more profit long term. I'll also drop a link to one of my videos that I have that kind of walks you through some like really good tips to help bump your credit scores up fast. Now, once your credit's solid and you've got a down payment strategy, step 3 is reaching out to lenders. And let me just say this, you should do this before you start scrolling Zillow for deals. Look, I know it's tempting to start shopping for properties first, but the truth is you need to know what you could actually afford. So here's what I suggest. Get in touch with a broker or my team and ask what you'd be qualified for based on your income, your credit, and your financials. And here's what you need to realize is this isn't some sort of like commitment or anything. You're just gathering information. You could have them do a soft credit pull, so it doesn't count as a hard inquiry and hit your credit scores. You're just gathering info at this stage. Think of it like dating. You're just filling out the numbers and what you qualify for and what everything looks like before making a commitment. And once you get a sense of what you qualify for, now you've got a realistic price range to work with, and then that brings us to step 4, which is choosing what type of property to buy. Now, this is where a lot of people overthink it. The truth is there's no perfect property type, but there are definitely some that make more sense for beginners. Now, if you're starting out, it's typically going to be between either a single family, a small multifamily like a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. Probably don't want to jump into an 18-unit apartment complex right off the bat. These are going to be easier to manage, the financing straightforward, and they tend to attract long-term tenants. One thing I'd avoid early on, condo is condos. Yeah, they could look great, they could be cheaper, but those HOA fees will absolutely destroy your cash flow. Plus, a lot of condos have weird restrictions on rentals, and that's just not something you want to deal with on your first deal. So stick to what's simple. You want something in a decent neighborhood that doesn't need a full gut renovation, and that's going to cash flow from day one. Now, there is a whole strategy on finding beat up properties that do need renovations. If you could buy them for like way below market, do the work, you could use an FHA 203k loan and then have instant equity that way. I have other videos, I'll pin some here that talk about all that, but I don't want to confuse you before we get through the basics here. So the next step is step 5, which is doing your research. Now that you know what you could afford and what type of property you're after, it's time to actually start evaluating deals. And this is where people start to get overwhelmed, but it doesn't have to be complicated. You want to look at 3 main things. 1, what's the estimated rent for that property? You could use a site like rentometer.com, Zillow, or just check other listings in the area and see what they're renting for. You can even call local property managers and ask them. 2 is, what are your total expenses going to be? That includes your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and then I would take another 5 to 10% on top of that for maintenance or property management. And then 3, is the property going to be cash flowing once you look at all that? Meaning, after you pay all your expenses, is there still money left over? If the answer is yes, that's a property definitely worth looking at. If it's a break even or negative cash flow, I would potentially pass on that unless you look at the unit you're going to be living in, and once you move out in the future, once that's rented out, it will then be a positive cash flow deal. Then it's not so bad because you most likely have a housing expense now. So by buying a multi-unit property that doesn't necessarily cash flow while you're living there, but you still have the same or reduced housing expense from the rents, that's still not a bad deal. You just want to make sure that when the time comes for you to move out, it will be cash flowing then. So once you've found a few solid options, step 6 is making sure your mortgage and financing is dialed in, getting with your lender, running your credit, locking in your pre-approval. This is a huge step because now you're a serious buyer and you've got to have your paperwork in order to be able to submit your offers. You want to make sure your numbers make sense and you're ready to pull the trigger when the right deal shows up. Once you find a property that checks all the boxes, you have your pre-approval in order, and you're working with your real estate agent to submit the offer. And quick tip here, make sure your offer includes an inspection contingency. That gives you the right to back out if the inspection reveals anything crazy. And then also you want to get an estoppel certificate. This is a certified document where the landlord and the tenants all sign off on exactly how much their rents are, how much they have on deposit on file, if there's any special terms or circumstances that you need to know about. It basically verifies the terms of the leases of the tenants that are in the property now. Because I have bought properties where I was told the rents are $1,000 a month, let's say. I take over the property and all of a sudden the tenants are like, no, I was only paying $800 a month. They reduced my rent. And I'm like, well, your lease agreement here says $1,000 a month. Oh no, we worked out a separate deal. An estoppel certificate protects you from any of that BS. So make sure you get one anytime you're buying a rental property or multi-units regardless. So again, that's called an estoppel certificate. You basically want to make sure you're staying in control throughout the whole process. So don't fall in love with a deal just because it looks good on paper. Make sure the numbers and the condition and everything you verify lines up. So step 8 is doing the inspection. This is your final checkpoint before closing. You want to hire a good home inspector. Have them check the roof, the plumbing, the electrical. I even have them scope the sewer lines to make sure there's no root intrusion or anything crazy like that going on, all of it. And if anything serious comes up, you could get additional inspections to look into it further, or you could negotiate. You could ask for a price reduction, a credit at closing, or have the seller fix it before you move forward. And if it's a mess, walk away. I promise there are always more deals. And finally, step 9, closing the deal. This is where it all comes together. You sign the documents, wire your funds, and officially become a rental property owner. Now you've got a great cash flowing asset, you're building equity, you're collecting rent, and you've got tax benefits working in your favor too. This is where your money starts working for you. So I'm going to give you a tip here from an experienced real estate investor. I have over 40 doors. I've been in this business 25 years, and I've seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly of owning properties. One thing I would always stay away from is buying an older home. They will eat up your cash flow with repairs and maintenance. So if the property's been recently remodeled, then that's great. If it's a newer property, that's great. If you're buying a fixer up and you're going to completely remodel it and you're running all those numbers and it still makes sense for the cost, what you're buying it for and all that, then good. But don't buy a property that maybe has some lipstick on it. It's an older home. Like, yeah, repairs are done. Nothing's really needed right now. It looks like it's in great shape. These older homes will definitely have lots of repairs, maintenance, and costs that bleed out that cash flow. So again, stay away from older homes that have a lot of deferred maintenance. That's going to be one of my biggest tips. That's cost me the most money over the years. So that's the roadmap. If you follow these steps, even if you're starting from scratch, you could absolutely buy your first rental property this year. And no, it's not always always easy, but it is possible. And if you're serious about doing this, I want you to drop a comment below. Let me know what questions you have, where you're at in the process. Are you saving? Are you already pre-approved? Are you just getting started? And hey, if you got value from this video, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, because I got other videos in my series that'll show you exactly how to analyze a rental property in under 5 minutes. I appreciate you being here. Now let's get to work.